Welcome to House of Horns. It's week 16. We're a little late. It's a little early also for us here recording on the podcast, but we had to get it done. It was a short week because of Monday Night Football and then all the traveling. And then the Rams got eliminated from playoff contention. So it's one of those days where you get tested. Do you want to be out here? Do you want to put on good tape, good film? Do you want to be evaluated? Do you want to play for pride? Yes. So we're out here, House of Horns, week 16. It's the Rams against the Denver Broncos on Christmas Day. And we're going to start the show by saying Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I'm Gilbert Manzano, OC Register, LA Daily News. I cover the Rams for those newspapers. I got that in reverse order, but I got it done. Again, I'm not Gabriel. Somebody call me Gabriel in the comments. I'm Gilbert Manzano or Gilberto. And you are Victor Corona, Victor producer, Javier. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. How are you doing?
Merry Christmas, happy holidays. I'm doing well, we got 3 weeks left. We're here on a Thursday morning, trying to, be a pro just like Bobby Wagner and, get through this, the rest of the season strong. But doing well, I know this is not a sexy matchup. But we have a lot of good content for you guys today on the show. We have our usual news and notes from Gilbert. We got our storylines of both teams, player matchups, and key to the game, and then of course our game prediction. And then we also have a lot of things going on the network here on the COMPAS on the Beat network. We just released a COMPAS on the Beat big show. That was a really good show. Gilbert missed half of the show, but we got our Christmas stuff in. We got some Festivities, a new segment on there, airing our grievances. And what else we have going on around the network, Gilbert, that you want to share?
Yeah, but you just reminded me, happy Festivus to those who celebrate. That is Friday, December 23rd. Frank Costanza, what a legend. If you know, you know. But yeah, we have plenty here. Obviously we've been mentioning the collab with homage. We hooked up our good friend Juan with the Christmas Day gifts with the SpongeBob and Patrick, and he told me him and his family loved it. So you want to see more stuff from homage? It doesn't have to be SpongeBob, but they have a lot of Rams gear. You go to that link right there, and you click it. You connect with your boys here. You help us out. You get a Ram shirt. You help us out. Get to the Super Bowl. That's a goal here. Get the COMPAS to the Super Bowl, House of Horns. I know the Rams won't be there, but we want to be there. So help us out. And also the link is also in the description. So you can link that, click that, and you'll get there right away. So yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff here at COMPAS on the Beat, the network. We talk NFL on the show there, COMPAS on the Beat actually. So check it out. But we got you covered here, House of Horns. I know the game is, like you mentioned, not sexy, but there's a lot of intriguing storylines, and then also too, like there's like a whole other point to it, where I'll get to what Cam Akers told me, but the Rams are playing spoilers. Like they're officially going to be a spoiler now. There's no more slim hope to make the playoffs. So to start off the show, I have an engagement question. I want to hear from you guys, the listeners and the viewers of House of Horns. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers here on the channel. We're getting closer, so please do that. Tell a friend about it, and also listen on the audio too. We want to grow that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But the engagement question is, do you want? Or it's kind of a weird scenario. The Rams don't have a first round pick, but if you keep losing, you get a higher second round pick. Do you want that higher second round pick, or do you just want to really beat the Chargers who are trying to play for a playoff spot? City rival. I don't know if there's a real rivalry there, but there could be. I see it on social media. Rams fans and Chargers fans don't really get along. And then obviously, I'm sure Rams fans want to beat the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle the last game of the regular season. Maybe Seattle's playing for something. They kind of taking a dive lately. But do you want to play spoiler, or do you want to just kind of kick back, evaluate some of these young players, and whatever happens, happens? Do you care? So that's my question there. Spoiler, or the focus is more not really winning, but maybe these young players like a Kyren Williams, Tutu Atwell, developing for the future, or Michael Hoyt as well.
Yeah, if I'm Ram fans, I want bragging rights against the Chargers, especially since they're looking to get into the playoffs, and they're like, well, that they're going through the schedule, and they're like, oh, that should be a win now, and as a Rams fan, you got to be like, no, man, we want that win, we want to be able to represent LA, so
Yeah,
yeah,
they've
that's
been,
a
they've
really
been
good
counting that
question,
win,
Gilbert.
yeah,
Yeah,
especially with the
exactly.
whole playoff predictor, and I'm like they're like at 90%. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Like if I'm Ram fans, I want to play spoiler the rest of the season, especially against the Seahawks and the Chargers, especially the Chargers just because of the hometown rivalry here. But let's get to your news and notes, Gilbert. What do you have for us?
Yeah, maybe a little surprising, but not too much. The surprising part is, well, I guess maybe not too much because you think about 4-10. But
Yeah,
the Rams only had one player make the Pro Bowl, and that is that one player, the player
Kyren.
regarded as the best in the world, Aaron Donald. Yes, it wasn't the best season for Aaron Donald, but I think he just has a reputation of he's getting triple team, and to command that much, that means you're doing something right on the field. People are still afraid of you. You command a lot of respect. So Aaron Donald is the only Pro Bowl selection for the Rams this season. Uh, so I know that a lot of injuries happen, but it's a little surprising, right? Coming into this year, everybody's saying how stacked they are. Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner probably
Yeah.
got snubbed. He's really good this year. So I know it's a losing season and they don't really focus on the losers as much. But that's why I keep saying I'm a little surprised. I thought maybe two or three. Like Aaron Donald, I assume people know and love Aaron Donald. We get it. But Bobby Wagner, I think maybe deserves some love. I know Jalen Ramsey has had some highs and lows. Maybe Cooper Kupp did enough the first 9 games, but I know there's really talented wide receivers in the NFC. So that is one of the news there, or news and notes there. And the other one is also Aaron Donald related. Um, Sean McVay still has not ruled him out for the rest of the year. I don't think he's going to play for this one. It doesn't seem likely for Christmas Day. But that leaves the Chargers and the Seahawks. Aaron Donald is not on IR. They're holding out hope for some reason. Maybe they really want to beat the Chargers and the Seahawks. So Aaron Donald, come on down and play spoiler. But Victor, I think that's about it for news and notes. It's pretty short because the team, gets back from Green Bay on Tuesday. That's technically a day off, but also a review the film day. And then on Wednesday, they had a walkthrough. They're gonna have another walkthrough, I think, actually Thursday. So I know it's only a one day that throws you off, but it really throws you off, and you have to kind of play catch up and rest up, especially in week 16. So they're not really practicing right now. The locker room is pretty empty. It's a holiday season, so in terms of news and notes, not too much shuffling. But we'll find a storyline when we get to the storylines.
Yeah, no, and one of the things I've come to learn, covering and just being around the NFL is that the last few weeks, especially once you hit the middle of December, the rest of the season is pretty much walkthroughs, man, because
Hmm.
everybody's, trying to make sure that their body is right for to be able to go, and I know the Rams aren't going to the playoffs, but either way, you still want to give your players some rest because it's a long season and you don't want to add more to it, especially during practice. So it makes a lot of sense. And then, as you talked about with Monday night game, and then we also did our post game show a couple of days ago, and we kind of went over some of the injuries already. So there's not a lot to report. So yeah, it's a short news and notes.
That's true.
So let's go ahead and get to our storylines, Gilbert. What do you have in terms of the Rams? I know there's something big with Cam Akers and a quote, so go ahead and let the
Yeah,
people know.
this could have been a note, but I just really love the quote, so might as well make it a storyline.
Yeah,
Uh, so after we spoke in the locker room, maybe I mentioned this in the post game show, but might as well mention it again in case you missed it. And little plug there: check out all the post game shows, all the preview shows, all the locker room videos here at House of Horns. But I'm gonna say it again: Cam Akers really wants to play spoiler, and he had a colorful way of saying it. And he was also kind enough to give people an option. So uh, he said he wants to treat these final 3 games and particularly more the Chargers and the Seahawks, because the Broncos aren't really playing for the playoffs. But who knows? Maybe he wants to give Russell Wilson another loss. But he said, we want to piss in other people's coffee or cornflakes. So whichever one you prefer. Uh, I don't know which one I will pick, Victor, there. And then to end the quote was also pretty good. He wants to treat the final 3 games like a championship. And I'm sure he really does, because again, we don't know the future of Cam Akers, and we discussed this one for sure on the postgame show.
Yeah.
Why is he getting all the carries? And maybe he's just a punching bag you mentioned, and maybe
Yeah.
he doesn't care because he's auditioning for other teams. Uh, it's going to be really interesting what they do. Maybe they find a trade partner. Maybe they just release him and say that's enough. Or are you thinking, hey, maybe Kyren Williams is not ready to be the lead back? Let's have two just in case. But Victor, before I get to the next storyline, what are you thinking about the options you have from Cam Akers?
No, I mean, in terms of what he said, he's right. I mean, this is he's kind of become their feature player right now with all the injuries, and as we get down to keys to the game, I'll talk about him, but he's become their featured player right now, and I'm glad he's able to give you guys some good quotes for the reporters, because I know he's had an up and down season. He almost left the team and he survived. We saw, some of the players, I know fans have been asking for Kyren Williams, but Cam Akers, he had 100 yards, total yards against the Packers, which, the other were 65 yards from the rest of the team. So that tells you how, I wouldn't say valuable, but how much he's taken on now, and he's become a big part of this team on offense. So it's good to see him kind of rebound, and hopefully he turns this into something more. Maybe he's on another team, as you talked about, next season, or maybe he comes back. It'll be an interesting storyline this offseason for sure, Gilbert.
Yeah, it's a big problem when a team only has 156 total yards in a game, and it's also a bigger problem when your running back only gets 35 receiving yards and still leads the team in receiving yards. So it was very clunky performance for the Rams offense, but maybe one that we've come accustomed to this season. And I'm not sure. I feel like I've seen way too many ugly performances, but I don't know where to rank that one in terms of the worst offensive performances for the Rams this season. It
Yeah.
didn't feel like it was the worst one, but it's up there when you see the numbers, especially and what Cam Akers was doing. But Victor, going to my next storyline, you kind of got me there. I wrote about this in the Orange County Register. Check it out. But just evaluating players has also been a challenge for Sean McVay and the Rams coaching staff. And you would think this would be the one positive, that young players are getting opportunities and they get to be evaluated. You get to see who do you want to be on your roster. Uh, but that's been an issue for multiple reasons, and Sean McVay pointed them out, because I started by saying, somebody called me Gabriel here on the podcast, and before I saw the comment of my name being wrong, I already asked Sean McVay about the lack of touches of Kyren Williams, and he said, we want to get Kyren Williams more involved. He didn't say I still, but he loves that guy, and to me, I felt like, okay, he's still a guy that he really likes. He called him a 3-down back. He called him mature beyond his years, but then I find it weird that Cam Akers getting the bulk of the carries, and then the one thing that Kyren Williams is pretty good at right now is pass protection. He's not even doing that. That's Malcolm Brown in there, and Malcolm Brown, gave up a couple sacks the other day, Monday Night Football. So I wanted to know what the heck is going on. Like, when you say good things about, when you call a running back a 3-down back, that's high praise, especially nowadays, when all these running backs have their own little roles. So for him to be able to do everything and able to pass protect, and he's mature right now, and he's able to kind of comprehend everything. These are all words from Sean McVay. It's just a head scratcher. So, what I told him, hey, is it because Cam Akers is playing so well? Because remember, we kept crying on this show, House of Horns, just pick one and stick to it. And that's what he's
Yeah.
doing. And now we're saying give it to Kyren. He chose the wrong one for us, I guess. Uh,
Yeah.
he says because, Cam Akers is doing well, but also the biggest one is the lack of plays on offense. He mentioned, he gave me the stats. He said the Rams offense only ran 17 offensive plays in the second half on Monday Night Football, compare, I want to say, to like 40 for the Packers. Uh, so that's been a problem all year. Lack of plays, unable to sustain long drives. The other team controlling the clock and having the time possession, so you don't get enough plays to get more people involved. It still could be like an excuse, right? You can still find a way there to get Kyren Williams involved. And also, you're kind of playing catch up too. So I guess you want to throw the ball a little more. So, but still, when you look at Kyren Williams' sheet and it says he hasn't had more than 3 carries since like week 12 of the NFL season, you could find opportunity somewhere. And I think Sean McVay was saying, like, hey, we want to get Kyren more involved. So we'll see if he does that. But that is one problem of evaluating, especially offensive players, is you don't get enough plays to get more people involved. Uh, like a Tutu Atwell as well. Van Jefferson, I think they already know what Van has, but like Tutu Atwell. Oh, and no Ben Skoranek, but I think we mentioned that in the post-game show. That's why
Yeah.
it's kind of a small news and notes. But again, no Ben Skoranek. You want to see if you want to invest in Brandon Powell. Brandon Powell is a free agent. So that's the other part of it too, is like they have 16 free agents on this roster, including a guy like Greg Gaines, who I think already did enough to keep a job and get a second contract from the Rams. Michael Hoyt is an exclusive rights free agent, so they could, handle that how they see fit. And I think Michael Hoyt is one of those guys who stepped up in tough circumstances. Like, there's no excuses for Michael Hoyt. He stands out. He does what he needs to do, but I know it's different from a running back kind of point of view. Uh, Taylor Rapp has been really, up and down, but he's getting an interception. He's another free agent too. So you're trying to figure out which of these pending free agents. Also, Nick Scott, another free agent. Which of these guys do you want to keep around? And it's tough to evaluate also because the other part of it is too, when you have so many injuries, you have a lot of moving parts, and these guys can't really flourish when everything's like a mess every single week, Victor. And Sean McVay had a funny quote where the Broncos defensive coordinator, I feel like I'm gonna butcher his name, Evero,
Yes.
Evero
Yes.
used to coach under Sean McVay, and then the Packers DC Joe Barry, I want to say, also coached under McVay. So the question was, is it tough to game plan against DCs who know your scheme so well? And he's like, I don't even know who's going to play on a weekly basis. I don't even know what the heck I'm looking at on a weekly basis. And when we try it out on the field, it's always something different because it's different players. So defensive coordinators can't even game plan for that. And then Sean McVay is saying, I wish I was joking. So that's how tough it's been for this Rams offense, and kind of like a punch in the face after winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, especially as you were talking about, it's hard to evaluate players when your offensive line is going through it'll be what, the 13 different combination by now, something
Uh,
like that.
I want to say if they stick with Ibushi, it might be one we've seen before. Like, I got to go
Oh,
through my
okay.
notes, but I think we've seen this combination before. Maybe
Yeah,
not though.
yeah, it's in the double digits either way. It's pretty bad. So it's hard to evaluate players in terms of that. Kyren Williams, I mean, I get it. He's a rookie. They're gonna try to get him in there. You know, not as much as you would want to see him right now. I get it. He's on a rookie contract, but maybe they do plan to use him more, in the upcoming seasons, and so they want to make sure that he's up to task to be able to do everything that they want from him on offense. And so, as we talked about with Cam Akers, maybe he's the punching bag right now, and they're just gonna throw him out there to the wolves and see, that way people can see if he's tough or not, and maybe he gets a second contract from someone else. But that's part of the game right now in terms of the Rams, because evaluations are going on with every team. But you totally understand where McVay is coming from, because he's yeah, as much as you want to prepare your team and put the best players on the team, you can't do much if half of your squad is hurt or on injury reserve.
Yeah, it's just kind of a tough deal all around for the coaches, for the players, and I don't know. Maybe it's just more excuses, but when you have an opportunity and you're a young player, might as well make the most of it any way you can. And Now that I think about it, Victor, also in this story, another kind of good quote I got in a conversation that I had yesterday, being Wednesday. Another player they're trying to evaluate is third-year tight end Brycen Hopkins. Remember that name? Brycen Hopkins was supposed to
Yes.
have a pretty impactful year three with the Rams. It never occurred. He got the suspension for I'm not some kind of drug policy. I don't know the extent to that, but he lost 3 games. He comes back and just was never really involved in the offense. And I get it. They play 11 personnel, and their one tight end they like is Tyler Higbee. It's hard when you don't want to change your personnel, your scheme, and you have 3 wide receivers. But you would think you want to at least see what you have, and like Brycen Hopkins, you know what you have in Higbee. But I think Higbee is really respected and really trusted by Sean McVay. And so I caught up with Brycen Hopkins, and he, to his credit, was very honest with me. He's like, yeah, I would like to be featured more in the offense. I would love to get more opportunities. But then he said the right things after that. Like, I'm gonna be patient. I'm gonna be persistent. I'm gonna be dedicated. I'm gonna practice hard. I'm gonna prove myself. So when he said prove myself, I was like, okay, so does that mean uh, after the whole suspension, you had to do that? Like, because they only kept 2 tight ends. Remember on the initial roster, like he was the guy they chose him over Kendall Blanton. I felt like he had a role on this roster, and he's like, yeah, I think maybe I'm proving myself because of what happened with the suspension. But then he's like, I really don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. It's a little frustrating, uh, but I'm just gonna keep showing up to work and doing my job. So I thought that was honest by Brycen, and he's a little frustrated right now, but he's handling it the right way, though. Cam Akers did not, and he was sent home for a month, but he's coming back and he's getting more opportunities than Brycen Hopkins. So who knows that nowadays, right?
Yeah, no. And I'll just say this in terms of Brycen Hopkins, I know I've seen Ram fans their biggest gripe with this is that, if you look at his tape from college, he was a really athletic tight end, and here with the Rams they're trying to make him into a blocking tight end. So people are just confused as to what's happened with him, because he was supposed to be like this really, stretch the field tight end, and you're trying to turn him into a blocking tight end. So, you know, uh, the criticism is there, and rightfully so, Gilbert.
Yeah, it's tough when you can't really agree with the scheme and the way they're using you, but you know, when you're a young player, you just got to do what the coaches tell you, and
Exactly.
your time will come eventually. And it came for Brycen Hopkins in the Super Bowl. He had a big time Super Bowl, and he won a Super Bowl. So when you try to think positive, maybe he thinks about it that way, like I won a Super Bowl. But
Yeah.
last thing here for storylines, Victor, because I think I already mentioned it, and it is kind of a weird week, so we got to keep it moving. Again, if you missed the post game shows, you check it out. But we did mention that Matthew Stafford said on Kelly Stafford's podcast, I want to say that it's called The Day After, Kelly Stafford
Hmm.
being Matthew Stafford's wife, that he's not retiring. And so that's that storyline there. I guess pretty much dead if you're saying he's not going to retire. But that doesn't mean that like he'll be ready to go. Is he healthy or not? Like that's going to be a process still. Like we're going to have to keep updates on Stafford. We haven't even spoken to Stafford since I can't remember. I think the week before New Orleans, that was week 11 of the NFL season. So I'm guessing the next time we talk to Stafford will be the exit interviews after the locker room clean out the day after the Seahawks game. Let me know if my Wi-Fi is terrible because I see it's down right now, Victor.
No, you're good.
Okay. And yeah, that's when we get more into detail about the injury, how he's feeling, stuff like that. So, but he's gonna come back. The money is too enticing. We've been saying on the show, and it's not. I'm sure it's not just about money. He's a competitive guy, but it's hard to give up all that money there. So at least he's gonna come back, maybe put some pressure on the Rams to see what's going on with the injury there, and we'll figure it out from there. But yeah, retiring is not an option. It seems like right now.
Yeah, no, and we talked about it on the post game show. So, in terms of Stafford, also living in sunny Southern California doesn't hurt things. He's able to rehab and take his time coming back. There shouldn't be a problem, and it's not like he's in Detroit where it's cold and it's hard, on your bones there as you get older. So, it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting offseason, and I know we'll get, when we get there, we'll talk about it. We'll have a lot of things to say about the topic, but as of right now, he's, you until he talks to you, we don't have much on that. All we can go off of is what he what they talked about on the podcast with his wife. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's pretty much it.
And he's
And
been, I was gonna say, he's been an assistant coach for Baker Mayfield, so he's
oh
been
yeah,
busy.
yeah, I know. There's been a bunch of memes coming out of that, him with the two of them. So it's been pretty funny to see. But in terms of another quarterback, let's move over to the Broncos storyline, and I'll be brief with this. And as everybody knows, if you follow the NFL, you know how bad the trade was between in terms of the Seahawks, they're the biggest winners of this, but how terrible the trade was for the Broncos, and it just keeps getting. It seems like it keeps getting worse because of first the trade. You give up 5 draft picks to go get him, plus 3 players: Shelby Harris, Drew Lock, the quarterback, and Noah Fant, the tight end. Um, and then, so there's that. And then the Seahawks are probably going to get a top 5, top 10 pick because of how bad the Broncos have been this season. So there's that. I don't know if you have any comment on the trade and how bad it's been.
Yeah, it kind of feels similar to, well, not too similar because the Rams won a Super Bowl, but the whole Stafford trade there, like if you forget the first year, like it kind of feels similar because they got the aging veteran quarterback who's not doing too well, and then the other team gets a really high pick when they're actually winning too. Like the Lions and the Seahawks have been winning games. I want to say they're both actually 7-7. So in terms of that, but yeah, like for some like I didn't believe in the Broncos because it just felt like they were asking for too much too soon. Like when you have a quarterback like Stafford on the move, first year, new team. Uh, Obviously Stafford's a veteran quarterback, just like Russell Wilson. But the biggest difference, he has Sean McVay, a guy who's been to a Super Bowl before, a proven winning head coach, a guy with a giant tree of success and for other coaches. So he knows how this business works, how to operate, how to make quick decisions. With Nathaniel Hackett, we never saw that from him. We didn't know how he would be as a head coach, and I never expected to be that rocky, that fast. And by the way, shout out to Nathaniel Hackett. He spoke to Rams reporters like, he could have been like, "Man, it's a terrible season. I'm having a terrible first year. Why am I going to go waste my time and talk to Rams reporters when it's optional?" He decided to talk. He was in a good mood. We asked some good questions. It wasn't like tough questions, but I think maybe for him it was a nice change of pace because maybe the Denver media has been hounding him, but it hasn't been a good year for Nathaniel Hackett, and maybe it's a learning lesson for him. And maybe the Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett figure it out year 2. If he gets a year 2, I don't know, because it's
Yeah.
been that bad. But I had an idea like it wouldn't work out for them this first year. Like maybe they would have been like a fringe wild card team, maybe fighting. And I wouldn't be surprised if they missed out in the playoffs because they have so many moving parts. But to be this bad, like a historically bad offense, I did not see that coming. Like I thought Russell Wilson will at least have his moments, but I know he didn't play last week, and they actually won without him. So I don't know. Maybe they felt the pressure. There was just too much. You have a new ownership there that just wants to see wins already. Uh, you know, the defense actually has been the surprise because we thought also too they lost Vic Fangio. Why this defense might take a decline? It didn't. So that was one positive. But other than that, it's been really bad, Victor.
Yeah, no, and I mean, just it's one mistake after another. They hired Nathaniel Hackett thinking that they were gonna get Aaron Rodgers, and that didn't turn out well. So then they go and they panic and they trade for Russell Wilson, and then that turns into a disaster. And then they add another thing. They give him an extension,
Yeah.
right? A 5 year, what is it? 5 year, $45 million extension, and now you can't even get out of that because of the cap hits. I mean, look at these cap hits, Gilbert. 2023 is 22 mil. 2024 is 35.4. 2025 is 55.4. 2026 is 58.4. 2027 53.4, and 2028 is $54 million. So they're stuck with Russell Wilson. I mean, I'm sure I know their new ownership, it has deep pockets, and if they want to move on, they'll move on. But that's a lot of money that's gonna set you back. I know you have some, and that's the other thing too, man. Like when you think you're just a quarterback away and you don't evaluate the rest of your team, that's kind of tough, man. Like you have to be sure, kind of like with the Rams, they went all in, but they had the right players around them, and even if they didn't, they went in and got a Von Miller, and a Odell Beckham Jr. to be able to go and win a Super Bowl and go on a run. So that's the risk you take, Gilbert, when you think you're a quarterback away.
Yeah, and it's on the Broncos' part for not maybe evaluating Russell Wilson. Maybe they could have noticed some subtle hints where like this guy might be on the decline. Maybe this guy is maybe not doing the right things, talking to more people. But maybe the film said, "Hey, this guy's still really good because he's still very young." So um, maybe it's just kind of caught everybody by surprise, and we'll see what Russell Wilson does because he's actually expected to play on Christmas Day. So that'll be intriguing to see up close what's going on with this guy.
Yeah, and then lastly, in terms of the Broncos, their defense has been really good, as you talked about. The defensive coordinator, Ejiro Ivero, I think is his name. I hope, like you said, we're not
Yeah.
butchering his name, but they have a shutdown corner in Patrick Surtain, and I just thought this was a note that for their defense is if the Broncos had scored 18 points or more this season, they would have they would be sitting right now with an 11-3 record. So that goes to show you how bad the offense has been and how good the defense has been this season for the Broncos. So it's been a tale of two different sides of the ball for the Broncos.
Yeah, by the way, I don't I want to say is Patrick Surtain, but then I've heard Surtain, so I'm not even sure anymore. You said Surtain, Victor. Uh
Call them PS2 as everybody
oh
does, just
really?
to be
Maybe
safe.
that's why people don't know that it's like Alvin Kamara and Kamara. Like I still don't even know
Yeah,
which one it is, to be honest.
yeah,
I want to say it's Kamara. But yeah, I keep saying Patrick Surtain, so I'll go with Pat. Maybe I just go call him
yeah.
Pat.
Just be
Yeah.
like the cool kids, man. Just call them PS2.
PS2, I guess, the game console, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Real quick nugget there. You know, we spoke to Nathaniel Hackett, like I mentioned, and I just asked him, "Hey, do you see similarities between Jalen Ramsey and Pat?" And he before he even finished my question, was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, this is going to be a nice little matchup here. I know they're not playing each other, but two of the best at their position going at it, and they're very similar in terms of how versatile they are. They could play inside, outside, the length and size they have, just the way they kind of just read the offenses. So uh, that was pretty high praise. I know Pat's having a better year than Jalen Ramsey. Pat got a Pro Bowl. I want to say it might be his first or maybe his second. I really don't know. He was really good last year too. So that's a good praise there, for Pat to be compared with Jalen Ramsey, and just to hear all that was pretty cool. And then I asked him, like, how about in terms of being like vocally, because Jalen's pretty loud and he speaks his mind. He's like, oh no, Pat's pretty quiet, so he's kind of like a quiet assassin. So yeah, a little nugget on the cornerback comparisons.
Well, since why don't you transition us right into player matchup since you're talking about Mr. PS2 there?
Yeah, PS2 is gonna be a problem for this really young Rams receiver. So for player matchups, I didn't want to, single out a player because I'm not really sure who's the number one receiver on this roster, and I don't think if the Broncos use Pat like they use like Jalen is being used with the Rams, he's gonna be all over the place. So, and then they don't really have a caliber player where they need to shadow somebody. So Pat could be all over the field trying to make plays. So Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, Brandon Powell, Austin Trammell, Lance McCutcheon. You better be ready for PS2. They probably weren't really old enough to play the PS2. These players are really young. They're more PS3 guys and up, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
But
PS5.
yeah, I'm just really curious to see how this passing attack is going to do when you're already down Cooper Cup, Allen Robinson, now Ben Skoranek, and you're Baker Mayfield. You're looking for playmakers, and he has good chemistry with Van Jefferson. So maybe PS2 will be on Van a little more. And I wanted to see more from Van last week. Remember, that was my matchup with Jair Alexander. who also just got another Pro Bowl selection. It didn't really work out, and it was just a struggle overall for the offense. But we'll see what can they do against this very stout secondary defense overall from the Broncos.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Patrick Surtain here, in terms of like do I mean usually they put him on the best wide receiver, but here you don't know who their number one. Maybe they'll put him on Van Jefferson, or if they move him around. So that'll be something interesting to look at. Mine is pretty easy. It's Cam Akers, as we talked about earlier. He's been the focal point of the offense now. Um, and in terms of how you attack this defense, we know it's another big Fangio protege. You know how you know what the formula is. You got to be able to run the ball against these type of defenses, um, with whatever you can, and then you try to set up you use the ground game to set up your passing game here with Baker Mayfield. So for me, it's just establishing Cam Akers and making sure that he's able to run the ball, and it's going to be a slugfest. We know that just because of how these two offenses are going to be run, and same with the two defenses that are pretty good. So yeah, that's pretty much my key, Gilbert.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, player matchup. Sorry.
yeah, and get Kyren Williams more involved too. I know
Yes.
Cam Akers has been getting the bulk there, but you got to be balanced. So, yeah, I like that because this offense has just been pretty bad.
Yes. All right, let's get to our keys to the game, as I got a little ahead of myself there. What do you got?
Yeah, it's more similar. Like I feel like the whole matchup here is like Broncos defense against this really bad uh Rams offense, and it's kind of the same on the other side too. The Rams defense has not been as good as the Broncos, but they've been decent. They play tough. Bobby Wagner, Jalen Ramsey against Russell Wilson. It's intriguing, but I'm going to focus more on the other side or the other matchup there. So, uh, to get your receivers involved, to get your rush attack involved, it starts with the offensive line. And it's just like, it felt like for a couple weeks, this wasn't really a big issue. They were getting by, they got the combinations right, they were consistent. They got 3 starters out of 5 back, and it was looking decent. It was doable, do some bootlegs, buy some time. It's all right. But Baker Mayfield was just under fire constantly against the Packers, and it's also tough to evaluate a guy like Baker Mayfield. Speaking of evaluation, like we don't know his future with the Rams. Maybe he's a backup, maybe he's not involved. We'll see. But he kind of came back down to earth because he couldn't do too much. And I'm not saying Baker Mayfield that was an excuse for him. That he could have been better with a better O line. No, he had a couple shaky throws out there, and I could tell that he wasn't making decisions as quickly. Like he couldn't get rid of the ball at times. Maybe he's kind of a little skittish. But I mean, that's what happens when you're getting just hit by Preston Smith 5 times throughout the game. So you just got to protect better. I'm gonna keep it simple there. It sounds like it's gonna be Odi Abushi at right guard, and then Coleman Shelton replacing Brian Allen at center. So uh, I got to figure out if we've seen that combination. I want to say we have, but with Ty Neski at left tackle, Matt Skura at left guard, maybe we haven't. I don't know. But we'll figure it out. But you just got to protect better. If you can't protect better, and you're facing this very stout Broncos defense, I know they don't have Bradley Chubb anymore. Maybe a couple pass rushers on top of your head, Victor, but they're doing something right. The stats say this team knows how to apply pressure. Maybe they're better in the back end, but they're gonna get after you with Evero there. So again, if you don't protect, you have no chance. It could be like a clunky game where it's like we'll get to it, but like 10-3 or something like that, right?
Yeah, no, it's gonna be low scoring. I mean, as we'll talk about, the over under is probably the lowest we've seen in terms of a Rams
It
game
keeps
this
getting
season.
worse.
So yeah, it's going down and down. So yeah, no. And then in terms of my keys, it's pretty simple, man. And I know as we just gave the over under, just try to score over 18 points, because as we've seen, I gave the record. The Broncos could have been 11-3 had they scored more than 18 points. So try and score more than 18 points.
That's wild.
uh yeah, and try to establish the run, and that way you can get Baker Mayfield out of the pocket, you know and be able to get him out of the pocket so that way you can throw the ball. Because if you keep him in the pocket there, it's going to be game over there. They're just going to be able to pin their ears and just rush Baker Mayfield all day there. So that's my key, is just make sure that you're able to establish the run so that way you can set up your pass game with some rollouts from Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, just get to 18 points, and that's not asking too much. But
Yeah.
since Baker's got in there, they haven't scored 18. They got 17 against the Raiders, so we'll see.
Yeah, all right, let's get to our our Rams mailbag, which is, we only had one, and so I want to, it's from Sir Randolph, who he's the one that calls you Gabriel. It says,
Oh,
Gabriel, I would love to hear you ask and respond to why the Rams won't stick with a consistent run strategy, why a max of 70 rush attempts when you are getting 5 yards per attempt, one more. Would would we perhaps get more offensive snaps if we played more aggressive on the defensive line instead of allowing many plays downfield until we get to the 10-yard line? What do you got for Sir Randall there,
yeah, it's
who calls
actually
you Gabriel?
yeah. First of all, it's Gilbert or Gilberto or Gil, whatever you prefer, but it's not Gabriel. Uh, but he has some good points there with where what reminds me of Sean McVay complaining about the lack of plays. Yeah, if the defense got more aggressive and they're not kind of like bend don't break, maybe the opposing team's not controlling the time of possession. But then again, if the defense is giving the ball back, it's up to you as an offense to sustain long drives. I get when you're running, you don't have enough clock time. That also hurts your lack of playing your plays. But also, you got to do something when you get it. So, uh, I don't think that's really an issue. I don't think I've never really heard any of the Rams players say that or Sean McVay. Like they just keep saying, I know you don't want to point the finger, but it's all about missed opportunities. And uh, yeah, I don't know. Like it's tough to ask Raheem Morris when you ask these coaches to change their scheme in the middle of the season. It's tough ask, but when you're 4-10, you have 3 games to go, and you want to just mix it up. Why not? But it's also kind of unfair to like Bobby Wagner and Jalen Ramsey, guys who kind of just been focused in this scheme, just because you want to benefit the offense. Maybe you want to benefit some of the younger guys, but uh, I don't know. At this point, when you're week 16, I don't see the defense changing. They are who they are. They are. So it's more on the offense just to kind of sustain long drives, or just if you're Sean McVay, just be stubborn and make Kyren Williams a feature back. Just don't give the ball to Cam Akers. Like Kyren Williams got a couple of touches really early. I was surprised. I want to say the first drive, and
Yeah.
he only had 2 carries. So what happened the rest of the way? Something maybe he saw he didn't like, or he's like, hey, it's a Cam Akers day, and he just went for it. So, yes, there's a lot of factors here that are moving parts, and it's never that simple when a guy doesn't get the carries. But I don't see the defense changing to help out Kyren Williams.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and I'll keep mine quick in terms of, I'll start with the defense. It's kind of hard, as you talked about, to change things midway through, especially when I think the biggest change they've made is they stopped focusing, because Aaron Donald is gone now, as you talked about on the post game show. It's created some new opportunities for guys like Michael Hoyt and Great Gaines, to where they're no longer the guy who's doing the dirty work. They're actually being able to pass, do more pass rushing moves and stuff like that. So in terms of, and you also have a young secondary, man. Like, and we're trying to see some of these young guys on in the secondary, and you're going to see them struggle. So I mean, there's only so much you can do, and then in the offense, we talked about the combinations. It's hard when you can't get the same five guys out there every single time, and you're trying to run the ball. Yeah, you don't want to be, that's been the biggest criticism I see, no matter whose team it is. You can talk about the Bills or even the Chiefs. People complain about how they don't run the ball enough, and you're always gonna people are always gonna complain about the play caller. So in terms of what the Rams, there's only so much you can do. I know it's an excuse, but you know this has been a trying year for Sean McVay, because we've never seen these type of injuries, so many injuries to a team, and this is what happens. And that's just the reality of it, Gilbert.
Yeah, no, I wish we had better answers, but a lot goes into it when you want to see a couple players get involved.
Yeah. All right, let's get The to our betting spotlight, the Rams are 2.5 point underdogs at home, and the over under is 36.5. I think against the Packers it was 39.5. So it went down 3 points now. So what is your game prediction, Gilbert?
Man, I really want to give the Rams a game. I haven't picked them in a long time. I can't remember the last time I picked them, Victor. I really want to remember actually. Oh, Panthers, probably the Panthers game.
Yeah.
That's probably the last time I picked them, and I've been doing well, going the other way. So I'm 10-4, the reverse record for the Rams. They're 4-10, and they're at home. You know, they play tough. They beat the Raiders out of nowhere. But when you're scoring 17 points against the Raiders defense, what makes you think you're going to score, what, 20 or 17 against the Broncos defense? And I know the Broncos offense is terrible. The Raiders know how to score points. But I just see a lot of problems with the offensive line again, where it could create a lot of turnovers. It could get ugly in a hurry, where maybe the defense is the one scoring the 18 points, right? Not Russell Wilson. So I'm going with the Broncos here. I'm going to say it's like 16. I don't know why I'm keep picking sixes here, which is kind of rare. 16-10 outcome. Broncos win. I go under here, and yeah, this Broncos defense really good. PS2 is going to have his way against his young receivers. You lost Spence Koronic, another just dirty work player. No Brian Allen. It's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm also going on with the under. I have it as a 20-10 for the Broncos. It's hard to I it's hard to pick the Rams right now, even with the whole Baker magic. And maybe he does something here and he surprises everybody again, especially since they're playing at home. Playing at home helps a lot. You're not going on the road to Mile High, so that's also a big thing. I know the Broncos don't play as well on the road, so that might be something that you can, kind of have some hope for. But I just don't see it. I think that the Broncos will be able to establish the run. Russell Wilson is back. He still has a couple of receivers, and if they can use their tight ends, they've been really successful when they use their tight ends. So yeah, that's what I have, Gilbert. 20-10 Broncos. But before we go, please plug away. What stories are you working on for the OZ Register Ellie Daily News?
Yeah, maybe something like an update on Aaron Donald. Maybe what I mentioned about Jalen Ramsey and PS2 comparison. I think that's pretty cool from Nathaniel Hackey, what he said. Maybe just looked into the community work the Rams players have done during the holidays season, the spirit. I feel like every time I get a press release from the Rams, Tyler Higbee's doing something. So in the community, so I want to give him some shine there and highlight what he's doing. Bobby Wagner, another one big in the community, spending his first uh, Christmas season in the NFL in his hometown of LA or home area of LA, because Ontario is really far from LA. If you know, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, just want to highlight what they're doing, and then I think I'm gonna look at the kind of similar season for the Broncos and the Rams. I feel like I've done that a lot too because of Packers last week. But two disappointing teams with two very bad offenses, and kind of just looking into like the struggle these coaches have had, Hackett and McVay throughout the season. But yeah, check out my stories, OC Register, LA Daily News. Follow me on Twitter. But subscribe more here on House of Horns. That's where we give you the better content. Twitter, I don't know about Twitter, but I like it better here. YouTube, I love the subscribers that we have, the community and the engagement. So keep doing it.
Yeah, and then we also have, don't forget, we're trying to get to the Super Bowl to be able to cover, be there for Radio Row. So make sure that you're checking out the homage page and click the link, and then support the program by buying some shirts, some Rams shirts, some Rams gear. That would really help us out. Anything else, Gilbert, before we head out?
No, that's it. Again, check out all the content on Combats on the Beat and subscribe to Combats on the Beat YouTube. Again, we're going to try to get Combat Combats going again. That's our combat sports channel. If you're in the middle of your fantasy playoffs, you want to check out what Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams are doing against the Colts on Monday Night Football. Check out What's Up Boat Fernando Ramirez, Dan Dago. So we have it covered for LA football. We have it covered for NFL football. We have it covered for combat sports. We do it all here on the COMPAS on the Beat Network. But again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Festivus to those who celebrate. We were a little late with posting House of Horns. We'll get it. We're recording this early. We got it done. We made it work. I'm back from Green Bay, playing catch up, but we did it. And thank you, Victor, for also waking up and doing this pretty early.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it. I'm glad we can get this content out to Rams fans. So with that, get us out of here, Gilbert.
And again, don't forget to comment under this video. Just engage. But on that note, ya nos vamos, pues, vámonos.